That's the place where you take all the letters upside down and backwards and lay them in place, and we put them in the chase. And then with strong arm and back, I would press the paper to the ink. We'd hang the papers, wait for the ink to dry and the paper to dry. And out in the streets, we sold more newspapers than anybody else. My brother had on this continent the very second newspaper, the New England Current. In that newspaper, we started pressing things, social issues, with the British Parliament. Oh, I got the idea that perhaps I could someday use my quill as if it was a javelin. And I learned to write more. I actually did something wrong, and I wrote. Now, I'll give you a moment to think about what I just said. You see, we had no freedom of speech. We had no freedom of assembly. We had no freedom of the press. The British lords really controlled it. They didn't like what my brother was writing in the paper. I made up a name of a lady called Silence Do Good. And I used my quill as if it was a javelin. And I started making fun of the establishment. Oh, the widow lady that lived at the edge of town that was ill-treated. Oh, I slipped the stories up underneath the doorstep. My brother would read the stories. He'd hand them to me in the morning and say, "Benjamin, put this to print." After a series of stories, it was later he found out that I was the one that was doing the writing. My brother went to jail for 30 days for things that we wrote in the paper, and I, myself, at the age of 16, kept that newspaper going. When my brother James found out that I was the one that was doing the writing, he beat me about my head and shoulders. I ran away from Boston. Now, I don't advise that of young folks to do, to run away. But I had my eyes on a different place. I made some stories, and I sailed off on a little skiff and went to a place called, I think you call it Manhattan, New York. Kind of a backwards country place, not much happening there. They said Philadelphia is the place to be. And thus I did. At the age of 17, one October morning, I ventured down, the Delaware after I came across the Jerseys. It was that Sunday morning, walking up Market Street in Philadelphia. I made eyes with a young lovely. Her name was Deborah Reed. Little did I know I must look to sight. Shirts in one pocket, socks in another, worn, tattered clothes, a couple loaves of bread up underneath my arms. I must have been a sight. But I had my eyes on opportunity. You see, I recall folks saying that this is the land of milk and honey. Oh, my father would clearly differ. This is the land of opportunity. For those of you that are willing to work, you may obtain some milk and honey. But to think that people would actually come to this land and just freely be given something without the sweat of their brow? I am looking for opportunity. I went to work for a foul-tempered man by the name of Keimer. And in time, I actually bought a gold watch, a fine suit of clothing, and I was walking taller and I was walking prouder. And I was a young printer. A British lord came to me and he says, "Young Franklin, I promise you to be the king's printer."